what was supposed to be just another explosive day on the set of Love and Hip Hop, Atlanta turned into a jaw-dropping showdown that no one, not the cast, not the crew, and definitely not the fans saw coming. Cameras were rolling, producers were scrambling, and right in the middle of it all stood Mona Scott-Young, the powerhouse creator who built the empire from the ground up. But this time, she wasn't calling the shots. She was the target. Sources on set claim that tensions between Kirk Frost and Jasmine Washington had been simmering for weeks. Whispers of secret meetings, contract disputes, and behind-the-scenes power struggles were already making the rounds. But no one expected the disrespect to explode the way it did. According to insiders, emotions ran high as Kirk allegedly raised his voice in front of the entire production team, questioning Mona's authority. And Jasmine. She reportedly doubled down, making comments that left the room in stunned silence. Fans are shocked. Cast members were reportedly frozen in place. Some crew members even stopped filming, unsure whether this was scripted drama or a real-life meltdown unfolding in real time. One insider revealed it felt different. This wasn't for the cameras. This was personal. Was this a calculated move to shake up the franchise or a reckless gamble that could cost them everything? With contracts on the line and reputations at stake, the question now echoing through Atlanta is simple. Should Kirk Frost and Jasmine Washington be fired from Love and Hip Hop, Atlanta? Or is this the kind of chaos that keeps the ratings sky high? Buckle up, because what happened next might just change the future of the show forever. The tension didn't just hang in the air that day, it practically suffocated everyone on set. Lights were blazing, cameras were positioned, and what was supposed to be a controlled scene for Love and Hip Hop, Atlanta quickly spiraled into something no producer could have predicted. Kirk Frost stood near the monitors, visibly irritated, pacing back and forth as crew members exchanged nervous glances. Jasmine Washington leaned against a makeup station, arms folded, her expression unreadable, but clearly charged with frustration. And at the center of it all was Mona Scott-Young, calm on the outside. But insiders say her patience was running dangerously thin. It all started with a scheduling dispute. That's what the official story says. But those who were actually there claim it was much deeper than that. Kirk allegedly felt sidelined this season, claiming his storyline was being manipulated to make him look reckless and irresponsible. Jasmine, on the other hand, reportedly believed she was being painted as the villain once again, despite what she described as telling her truth. When Mona stepped in to redirect the scene, that's when everything exploded. "We're not doing this storyline again," Kirk reportedly snapped, gesturing toward the cameras. "I'm not about to be set up for drama that ain't even real." His voice echoed across the soundstage, cutting through the usual buzz of production chatter. Crew members froze. One assistant producer tried to whisper something into his earpiece, but Kirk brushed him off. Mona, maintaining her composure, allegedly responded in a firm but controlled tone. "Kirk, this is the show. Conflict is part of the format. You signed up for this." That's when Jasmine stepped forward, and according to multiple sources, her words were the spark that lit the fire. "No, what we signed up for was opportunity," she said sharply. Not to be embarrassed for ratings, the word hung heavy in the room, ratings. It was the one thing everyone thought but rarely said out loud. The cameras kept rolling, unsure whether this was still usable footage or a full-blown behind-the-scenes meltdown. Emotions ran high as Kirk backed Jasmine up, saying he was tired of feeling like a pawn in someone else's empire. "We built this franchise too," Kirk allegedly argued. "Without a real life, there is no show." Mona's expression reportedly shifted at that moment. Insiders say her calm demeanor gave way to visible irritation. "This franchise existed before you and it will exist after you," she replied coolly. Don't confuse participation with ownership. Those words hit hard. Witnesses say the room went silent. Some cast members who had been waiting for their scenes quietly retreated to their trailers, sensing that this confrontation was about to get even uglier. One source revealed that security was subtly called to standby, not because anyone expected physical violence, but because the energy was escalating fast. Jasmine didn't back down. In fact, she allegedly took things a step further. "Maybe it's time people see how this really works," she said, glancing directly at the cameras. "Maybe the audience deserves to know how storylines are pushed." Fans are shocked by what they're hearing now, but at that moment, it felt like the fourth wall had been shattered in real time. Kirk nodded in agreement, adding that he felt disrespected not just as cast, but as a businessman. He reportedly accused production of editing scenes to create narratives that didn't reflect his side of the story. Mona, however, wasn't having it. According to insiders, she reminded both of them that reality television thrives on conflict and that everyone benefits from the exposure, endorsements, appearances, brand deals. "Let's not pretend this platform hasn't elevated all of you," she said firmly. But the family was left divided. Some cast members privately sided with Kirk and Jasmine, believing that production sometimes pushed too far for dramatic effect. Others felt that challenging Mona publicly was a dangerous move. One anonymous castmate allegedly whispered, "You don't bite the hand that feeds you." The argument reportedly stretched on for nearly 20 minutes. Producers attempted to mediate, suggesting a break in filming. Kirk refused at first, saying he wanted the conversation documented. Jasmine agreed, insisting that transparency was long overdue. Emotions ran high as voices overlapped, accusations flew, and years of unresolved tension spilled out in front of everyone. At one point, Mona allegedly stepped closer to Kirk, lowering her voice but maintaining intensity. "If you're unhappy, you're free to walk away," she said. "No one is forcing you to be here." That statement changed the atmosphere instantly. Walk away. It sounded less like a suggestion and more like a challenge. Kirk reportedly scoffed, shaking his head. "Maybe we should," he replied. "Maybe this show needs us more than we need it." Guests were heard across the set. Fans may not have been there physically, but insiders say you could almost feel the future headlines writing themselves. Jasmine placed a hand on Kirk's arm, signaling solidarity. "We're not scared," she added. And that's when the unthinkable happened. According to multiple sources, Mona turned toward the executive producers and said just one word, "wrap." Cameras were cut. Lights dimmed. The scene was over, but the damage had only just begun. Cast members retreated into hushed conversations. Phones started buzzing almost immediately as rumors began leaking beyond the studio walls. Within hours, whispers of a potential firing were already circulating among insiders. What no one realized in that moment was that this confrontation wasn't just about ego or editing. It was about power, control, respect, and as Kirk and Jasmine walked off set together, refusing to participate in the next scheduled scene, one thing became painfully clear. This wasn't just another dramatic episode. This was a standoff that could redefine everything. This was a standoff that could redefine everything. As Kirk and Jasmine walked down the hallway toward their trailers, microphones still clipped to their outfits, the weight of what had just happened began to settle in. Producers rushed past them, phones pressed to their ears, whispering urgently. The word fire was already floating around in hushed tones. Some crew members avoided eye contact, while others watched with wide, curious stares, knowing they had just witnessed something that would ripple far beyond that soundstage. Inside Kirk's trailer, the energy was electric. He slammed the door shut and ripped off his mic pack, tossing it onto the couch. "I'm not about to be played like that," he muttered, pacing. Jasmine remained surprisingly composed, sitting down slowly, but her jaw was tight. "They think we're disposable," she said quietly. "That's the real issue." Meanwhile, back on set, Mona Scott-Young stood with executive producers in a tight circle. Her voice was low but firm. "This cannot happen again," she reportedly said. "If cast members think they can hijack production to challenge authority, we have a bigger problem." Emotions ran high not just between Kirk and Jasmine, but across the entire team. Some producers argued that the confrontation was gold raw, explosive, real. Others insisted it crossed a line. There's drama, and then there's disrespect. one insider allegedly said. Within an hour, the rest of the cast had heard multiple versions of the story. Scrappy reportedly asked, "Did they really go at Mona like that?" While another cast member allegedly replied, "They didn't just go at her. They called out the whole machine." The family was left divided. A few castmates felt Kirk had been building frustration for years. But others saw it differently. "This is a business," another cast insider reportedly said. "You don't publicly challenge the boss and expect no consequences." As the day dragged on, filming was officially suspended. Social media, however, had already begun buzzing. An anonymous crew member leaked that a major blow-up had occurred. Fans are shocked as cryptic tweets began appearing. Kirk posted a simple message, "Respect goes both ways." Jasmine followed with "Truth always rises." Those posts were enough to send speculation into overdrive. Blogs began running headlines hinting at possible contract disputes. Some fans sided with Kirk and Jasmine, arguing that reality stars deserve fair edits. Others felt Mona, as the mastermind behind the franchise, deserved loyalty. By the next morning, an emergency meeting had been scheduled at production headquarters. Kirk and Jasmine were summoned separately. That detail alone raised eyebrows. Insiders say Mona arrived early, composed, but resolute. Kirk walked in first, dressed sharply, projecting confidence. Jasmine followed shortly after, equally determined. The atmosphere in the conference room was icy. No cameras. No glam squad. Just contracts laid out neatly on the table. Mona allegedly began the conversation calmly. "What happened yesterday was unacceptable," she stated. "We can debate creative direction privately, but challenging production in front of crew undermines the entire structure." Kirk leaned back in his chair. "What undermines structure is feeling manipulated," he responded. "I won't sacrifice my reputation for storyline." Jasmine nodded. "And I won't be reduced to a caricature." Mona reportedly listened without interrupting, but when she finally spoke, her tone sharpened. Every cast member signs knowing conflict drives engagement. You benefit from that exposure. Benefit? Jasmine allegedly shot back. At what cost? The word cost echoed heavily. This wasn't just about airtime anymore. It was about image, brand partnerships, family impact. Kirk's wife had reportedly expressed frustration off-camera about recurring drama resurfacing year after year. Jasmine had faced online backlash that affected her personal life. Emotions ran high as those personal stakes surfaced. The meeting lasted nearly 2 hours. At one point, Mona allegedly presented two options: recommit to the show's format and continue filming immediately, or mutually agree to part ways. Mutually part ways. It sounded polite, but everyone in that room understood what it meant. Kirk reportedly asked for time to consider. Jasmine remained silent, but her expression suggested she was weighing pride against platform. Outside that conference room, rumors spread like wildfire. Blogs speculated about replacements. Fans debated whether the show could survive without Kirk's long-standing presence. Others argued that fresh faces might actually boost ratings. Behind the scenes, advertisers were quietly monitoring the situation. Controversy can spike viewership, but instability can scare sponsors. Production executives knew this wasn't just cast drama. It was financial. Later that evening, Kirk and Jasmine met privately at a restaurant away from cameras. Insiders claim the conversation was intense but strategic. "If we walk, we control our narrative," Kirk allegedly said. "If we stay, we play by their rules." Jasmine reportedly countered, "Or we negotiate new rules." That idea shifted everything. Instead of outright quitting, they began discussing leverage. Their fan bases, their storylines, the fact that the confrontation itself was now headline-worthy. Some sources claim they considered launching their own digital platform, promising unfiltered reality. Back at production, Mona was also strategizing. Insiders say she wasn't rattled, she was calculating. She had built empires before. Cast members had come and gone. But open defiance set a precedent she couldn't ignore. By the third day, a tentative agreement was reportedly drafted. Kirk and Jasmine would continue filming, but with revised creative discussions before major storyline arcs. However, there was a condition. They would need to address the confrontation on camera. That requirement stunned them. "You want us to relive it," Jasmine allegedly asked during a follow-up call. "Transparency," Mona reportedly replied. "If the audience senses tension, we show it." It was a risky move. Breaking the fourth wall again could either humanize everyone involved or deepen the divide. But one thing was certain, fans would be glued to their screens. When filming resumed, the atmosphere was noticeably different. Cast members approached cautiously. Whispers filled the dressing rooms. Kirk and Jasmine walked onto set united, but guarded. The scene was set for a sit-down conversation between them and Mona. Cameras rolled. Lighting was perfect, but the tension was raw. Mona opened calmly. "Last week, things escalated." Kirk responded evenly, but firmly, "because boundaries were crossed." Jasmine added, "We felt and heard." Emotions ran high as they revisited the confrontation. At one point, Mona admitted that production pushes for heightened drama. "That's the nature of television," she said. "But it should never feel like exploitation." That acknowledgement surprised many on set. It wasn't an apology, but it wasn't dismissal either. Still, the question lingered, was this reconciliation genuine or strategic damage control? As episodes began airing weeks later, viewers saw a carefully edited version of the clash. Social media erupted. Some praised Kirk and Jasmine for standing up for themselves. Others accused them of biting the hand that built their platform. The family was left divided once again. But just when it seemed the storm had passed, another twist emerged. Leaked footage and edited clips from the original blow-up began circulating anonymously online. In those clips, the argument appeared even more heated than what aired. Fans are shocked. Hashtags trended. Debates intensified. And once again, the spotlight returned to that explosive day on set. Production launched an internal investigation to determine who leaked the footage. Suspicion quietly floated around the cast. Trust eroded. Alliances shifted. And as tensions resurfaced, one unavoidable question loomed larger than ever. Was keeping Kirk Frost and Jasmine Washington worth the chaos? Or had that single moment of disrespect permanently altered the balance of power behind love and hip-hop? Atlanta. Because now it wasn't just about a confrontation. It was about control of the narrative itself. And once that line had been crossed, there was no going back to business as usual. The leaked footage spread faster than anyone anticipated. Within hours, major entertainment blogs were dissecting every second of the clip. Fans are shocked at how intense the exchange truly was. In the raw version, Kirk's voice was louder, sharper. Jasmine's frustration felt less calculated and more deeply personal. And Mona Scott-Toon's tone, while composed, carried an unmistakable edge of authority that some viewers interpreted as cold. The internet did what it does best. It chose sides. Some argued Kirk and Jasmine were brave for speaking up against production pressure. Others insisted they were unprofessional and ungrateful. Emotions ran high across social media platforms, with hashtags calling for both accountability and firings trending simultaneously. Inside the cast group chat, things were even more tense. Screenshots of heated messages allegedly leaked, showing certain cast members accusing Kirk and Jasmine of jeopardizing everyone's contracts. "We all rely on this check." One message reportedly read, "You don't blow up the set and expect no fallout." The family was left divided yet again. Kirk's wife, Rashida, was reportedly furious, not necessarily at Mona, but at the public spectacle. Insiders claim she confronted Kirk privately, asking why he couldn't handle the issue behind closed doors. "This affects all of us," she allegedly said. Jasmine, meanwhile, was facing pressure from her own circle. Friends warned her that challenging a powerhouse executive like Mona could backfire long-term in the industry. But Jasmine stood firm. "I won't keep playing the villain for somebody else's storyline," she reportedly told a close confidant. Behind the scenes, network executives began monitoring the chaos more closely. Ratings projections showed a potential spike due to controversy, but advertisers were nervous about instability. Emergency calls were scheduled. Lawyers reviewed clauses about conduct and breach of contract. The word termination was reportedly mentioned in at least one executive meeting. Yet firing Kirk and Jasmine wasn't a simple decision. Kirk had been a staple of love and hip-hop Atlanta for years. His messy personal life, business ventures, and complicated relationships had fueled countless story arcs. Jasmine's involvement had already delivered some of the franchise's most talked about moments. Removing them could create a gap impossible to fill mid-season. Meanwhile, filming continued under an uneasy truce. Every interaction felt charged. Cast dinners that once felt chaotic but playful now carried an undercurrent of suspicion. Who leaked the footage? Was it production trying to spin the narrative? Or someone from the cast looking to ignite further drama? At one group event filmed for the show, tension finally boiled over again. A fellow castmate allegedly confronted Kirk on camera. "You think you're bigger than the brand now." She snapped. Kirk didn't hesitate. "I think respect matters," he shot back. Jasmine chimed in, saying nobody's bigger than the brand, but nobody should be treated like they're nothing either. Emotions ran high as the argument escalated, forcing producers to step in once. Disgust. The idea alone sent shockwaves through production. Was this confrontation a power play all along? Had they manufactured rebellion to negotiate leverage? When confronted with the rumor during a filmed confessional, Kirk smirked and said, "People talk." Jasmine added cryptically, "We're focused on our truth." That ambiguity only fueled speculation further. The network, sensing both danger and opportunity, proposed a televised sit-down special, a reunion-style confrontation focused solely on the behind-the-scenes drama. The concept was risky, but potentially explosive in ratings. Mona agreed, reportedly on the condition that editorial control remained with production. Kirk and Jasmine hesitated but eventually signed on, recognizing the platform to address everything directly. When the special taped, the energy was electric. The studio audience buzzed with anticipation. Fans are shocked at the level of candor displayed. Kirk admitted he felt boxed into narratives that painted him as irresponsible year after year. Jasmine opened up about online harassment she endured due to storylines amplified for drama. "There's a human side people forget," she said, visibly emotional. Mona responded with measured honesty. "Reality television magnifies real situations," she said. "But no one is forced to stay." That statement once again ignited debate. Was it empowerment or dismissal? The audience reaction was mixed. Applause followed some moments, uncomfortable silence others. Emotions ran high as the conversation circled back to respect. Kirk eventually said, "I never meant to disrespect you personally." Jasmine echoed the sentiment, adding, "But we needed to be heard." Mona paused before responding. "And now you have been." It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it wasn't war either. After the special aired, ratings spiked significantly. Social media engagement hit record highs for the season. Ironically, the very confrontation that threatened to dismantle the show had revitalized it. Advertisers, seeing numbers climb, relaxed slightly. Yet trust behind the scenes remained fragile. Producers implemented stricter confidentiality agreements. Cast members were reminded of professionalism clauses. But the power dynamic had undeniably shifted. Kirk and Jasmine had proven they were willing to challenge authority publicly. Mona had demonstrated she could absorb conflict and turn it into compelling television. Still, unresolved questions lingered. Would this uneasy balance hold? Or was another explosion inevitable? Whispers continued about long-term consequences. Some insiders believe contracts for the next season include tighter creative control from production. Others claim Kirk negotiated new terms guaranteeing input on major story arcs. Jasmine reportedly secured clearer boundaries around how certain personal matters would be portrayed. The family was left divided, but functioning. Filming wrapped for the season under cautious optimism. Yet in private conversations, the cast acknowledged something fundamental had changed. The illusion of seamless production was gone. Viewers now understood that behind every dramatic dinner scene and tearful confessional was negotiation, editing, and power. Fans are shocked not just by the drama, but by the machinery behind it. As reunion preparations began, speculation reignited. Would unresolved resentment resurface? Would new leaks emerge? Was forgiveness genuine or strategic? In one final twist before the season break, a teaser trailer hinted at unseen footage from the original blow-up, moments even more intense than what had leaked. The internet erupted again. Clearly, the narrative was far from settled. Kirk and Jasmine may not have been fired, but they had stepped into dangerous territory. Mona had not lost control, but she had been publicly challenged. And as the franchise moved forward, one truth remained undeniable: respect, power, and storytelling were now intertwined more tightly than ever. And the next chapter of love and hip-hop, Atlanta, would be shaped not just by romance or rivalry, but by the lingering echo of that single explosive word, disrespect. Disrespect was no longer just a moment. It had become the theme of the entire season. The word fans debated in comment sections, the headline bloggers used to frame every recap, and the tension that lingered in every filmed interaction. As reunion week approached, the atmosphere behind the scenes felt heavier than ever. Stylists and makeup artists whispered updates to one another. Security presence was noticeably increased, and producers walked around with tight smiles that didn't quite mask their anxiety. Everyone knew this reunion would not be ordinary. It would be a reckoning. Kirk arrived first on taping day, dressed immaculately, projecting calm confidence, but insiders say he barely spoke in the green room. Jasmine followed shortly after, equally poised, though her silence carried intensity. Mona Scotchang entered last, her presence commanding as always, her expression unreadable. Fans are shocked at how much anticipation surrounded a behind-the-scenes power struggle rather than a romantic feud, but that's exactly what this had evolved into: a battle over control. When the cameras rolled and the host introduced the segment about the on-set confrontation, you could feel the temperature in the studio shift. Clips of the original argument played on massive screens, including angles viewers had never seen before. Gasps echoed from the audience. Emotions ran high instantly. Kirk watched himself on screen, jaw tight. Jasmine stared forward and blinking. Mona remained composed, though her folded hands suggested restraint. The host wasted no time. "Do you regret how that unfolded?" she asked Kirk directly. Kirk exhaled slowly before responding. "I regret that it got that loud," he admitted. "But I don't regret standing up for myself." Murmurs rippled through the audience. Jasmine added, "When you feel cornered repeatedly, eventually you speak up." Mona leaned forward slightly. "And when you speak up, there's a way to do it," she replied, her tone steady but firm. The exchange quickly intensified. Kirk pointed out years of storylines that he claimed painted him as careless without equal focus on his growth. Jasmine spoke about online threads she said stemmed from exaggerated editing. "People forget we have families watching," she said, voice cracking for the first time. The family was left divided not only on screen, but in real life, as relatives of cast members reportedly expressed frustration about being dragged into public debates. At one point during the reunion, another castmate jumped in unexpectedly. "You two don't get special treatment," she snapped. "We all get edited." That comment reignited the argument. Emotions ran high as multiple voices overlapped. Security subtly shifted closer to the stage. The host attempted to regain control, asking Mona directly whether firing Kirk and Jasmine had ever been seriously considered. A pause followed that felt eternal. Mona answered carefully. "Every option is considered when professionalism is questioned," she said. The word professionalism hung heavy in the air. Kirk's eyes narrowed slightly. "Professionalism goes both ways," he responded. The audience reacted audibly, split between applause and tension-filled silence. What shocked viewers most, however, was when Mona acknowledged something rarely said aloud. "This franchise thrives on conflict," she stated. But conflict cannot undermine structure. That admission ignited social media instantly once the episode aired. Fans are shocked at how transparent the reunion became, with some praising the honesty and others accusing everyone involved of turning corporate tension into entertainment. Mid-reunion, an unseen clip was revealed showing a private moment after the original blow-up, where Kirk appeared visibly shaken, telling a producer off-camera, "I don't want to be the villain forever." That vulnerability softened some critics' perspectives. Jasmine was shown comforting him, saying, "We'll rewrite it." Those two words, "rewrite it," became symbolic of what this entire saga represented, a fight to reshape narrative. As the reunion continued, the host pressed Mona about whether power dynamics needed re-evaluation. Mona didn't flinch. "Power exists in every workplace," she replied. "What matters is how it's managed." Kirk countered, "And how it's challenged." The exchange wasn't explosive, but it was sharp, like two executives negotiating rather than reality stars arguing. By the final segment, something unexpected happened. The host asked each of them to say one thing they respected about the other. The audience quieted. Jasmine spoke first. "I respect that you built something that changed lives," she said to Mona. Kirk followed. "I respect your vision." When it was Mona's turn, she looked at both of them before saying, "I respect your willingness to take risks." The moment felt less like reconciliation and more like acknowledgement and mutual understanding that despite tension, they were bound by shared success. When the reunion episode aired, ratings soared to season highs. Controversy had once again fueled curiosity. Advertisers leaned back in, comforted by numbers. Yet privately, insiders say contract negotiations for the next season were some of the toughest in franchise history. Clauses about conduct, media leaks, and creative consultation were tightened significantly. Kirk reportedly secured limited input into how certain storylines involving his family would be framed. Jasmine negotiated clearer boundaries regarding personal accusations. Mona maintained ultimate editorial control, but insiders claim she agreed to more structured communication with cast about long-term arcs. The power dynamic hadn't flipped, but it had evolved. Fans remain divided to this day. Some believe Kirk and Jasmine exposed uncomfortable truths about reality television. Others feel they risked the stability of a show that gave them a platform. What cannot be denied is that the confrontation permanently shifted the tone of love and hip-hop. Atlanta. Cast members now appear more cautious, more aware of how their words might ripple beyond the scene. Producers, too, seem more mindful of transparency. Yet drama remains, because drama is the lifeblood of the franchise. As filming for the next season quietly begins, whispers already circulate about new alliances and potential betrayals. Kirk and Jasmine are back on set, but the air around them carries history. Mona continues to oversee with strategic precision. No one mentions firing anymore, but no one forgets how close it came. Fans are shocked at how a single moment of open defiance transformed into a season-defining narrative about respect, control, and survival in the world of reality television. And as cameras capture fresh conflicts and reconciliations, one truth lingers beneath every scene. The line between storyline and real life is thinner than ever, and crossing it can either cost you everything or cement your legacy. The line between storyline and real life had never felt thinner, and as production for the new season moved forward, every interaction carried the weight of that history. From the very first table read, you could sense it. The smiles were polished, but the trust was fragile. Kirk walked in with a different energy this time, less reactive, more calculated. Jasmine followed closely, no longer just reacting to drama, but anticipating it. And Mona Scott-Young? She observed everything with the quiet focus of someone who had weathered storms before and knew exactly how to turn turbulence into television. Fans are shocked at how quickly the narrative shifted from "will they be fired?" to are they running the show now? Because that's what it started to look like online. Kirk's confessionals felt sharper, more self-aware. Jasmine's segments carried a tone of empowerment rather than defense. Some viewers applauded the growth. Others accused them of staging rebellion for leverage. The truth, as always, lived somewhere in the gray. Early in filming, producers set up a cast retreat, a luxury villa outside Atlanta meant to reset dynamics. But insiders say it was anything but peaceful. The first night, over a long dinner table lined with cameras and champagne glasses, the elephant in the room was finally addressed by another cast member. So are we just pretending last season didn't almost implode the franchise? She asked bluntly. Emotions ran high immediately. Kirk set down his fork slowly. Nobody imploded anything, he replied. We had a conversation. A conversation. Another voice cut in. It looked like a coup. Gasps circled the table. Jasmine leaned forward. It looked like people standing up for themselves. She shot back. If that scares you, ask yourself why. The family was left divided again, right there at that dinner. Some nodded in agreement. Others rolled their eyes. Producers behind the monitors exchanged tense looks. This was explosive, but it was also risky. One wrong escalation and they'd be back in crisis mode. Midway through the retreat, an unexpected twist hit. A blogger published alleged behind-the-scenes audio claiming that production had considered replacing multiple veteran cast members, not just Kirk and Jasmine. Panic rippled across the group chat. Suddenly, the conflict wasn't isolated anymore. Everyone felt vulnerable. Fans are shocked as the cast began tweeting cryptic messages again. Loyalty matters, one posted. Nobody is safe, another wrote. Speculation exploded that Mona was planning a cast shakeup to reassert authority. During a private on-camera sit-down between Kirk and Mona arranged for clarity, the tone was noticeably calmer than their original blow-up. We can't keep revisiting this every time tension rises, Mona said evenly. At some point, we move forward. Kirk nodded. Moving forward requires trust. Trust requires boundaries, she replied. It wasn't shouting. It wasn't explosive. It was controlled, almost corporate. But viewers later said it felt more intense than screaming because it showed how much had changed. This wasn't chaos anymore. It was negotiation. Jasmine, in her own confessional, revealed something new. When that footage leaked, I thought it would destroy everything, she admitted. But maybe it exposed what needed to be exposed. That vulnerability shifted fan perception yet again. Support hashtags began trending in her favor. Critics softened slightly. But just when stability seemed possible, another dramatic twist emerged. A former crew member gave an anonymous interview claiming the leak didn't come from cast at all. It allegedly came from someone within production hoping to boost ratings. The internet erupted. If true, that would flip the entire narrative. Emotions ran high as cast members demanded answers. At the next group scene, Jasmine confronted a senior producer directly on camera. Did this come from inside? She asked. The producer denied it firmly. Mona later addressed the rumor in a statement, calling it speculative and irresponsible. But doubt lingered. The family was left divided not just among cast, but between cast and crew. Advertisers once again monitored closely. Controversy was profitable, but mistrust was dangerous. Network executives reportedly held emergency meetings about brand stability. The word restructure floated quietly in executive emails. As mid-season approached, ratings data revealed something fascinating. Episodes centered around the behind-the-scenes power struggle consistently outperformed romantic subplots. Fans were invested not just in relationships, but in the machinery of reality TV itself. The audience wanted authenticity about the artifice. Recognizing this shift, producers leaned in. More fourth-wall moments were included. More candid discussions about editing and narrative shaping aired. Kirk and Jasmine became unlikely symbols of transparency, even as critics questioned their motives. At one pivotal episode taping, Mona gathered the entire cast for a rare full group address on camera. "This show survives because of all of you," she said. "But it also survives because of structure. If we blur that line too far, we all lose." Kirk responded calmly, "Structure shouldn't silence us. And rebellion shouldn't destabilize us," she countered. The exchange was firm but respectful, a far cry from their initial confrontation. Viewers later described it as watching two power centers find equilibrium. Behind closed doors, contracts for the following year were quietly extended. That alone signaled something major. Kirk Frost and Jasmine Washington were not being fired. In fact, insiders suggest their positions may have become even more secure because controversy had proven their value. Fans are shocked at how close cancellation rumors once felt compared to the show's renewed momentum now. What began as alleged disrespect transformed into a case study in leverage and survival. Blogs that once demanded termination now analyze strategy. Still, not everyone was satisfied. Some longtime viewers felt the magic of spontaneous chaos had been replaced by strategic self-awareness. Others argued that evolution was necessary. The family was left divided in audience perception as much as on screen. As the season finale approached, producers crafted a montage highlighting the journey from confrontation to compromise. Flashbacks of shouting were intercut with calmer negotiations. Jasmine's tearful confessional. Kirk's admission about reputation. Mona's insistence on structure. The editing framed it less as rebellion and more as transformation. In the final scene of the season, Kirk, Jasmine, and Mona appeared together at a charity gala event filmed for the show. Cameras captured polite conversation, even light laughter. But viewers could sense the layered history beneath every exchanged glance. A reporter at the event asked directly, "Was anyone almost fired?" Mona smiled slightly. "In this business, everyone is replaceable," she said smoothly. Kirk responded without missing a beat. "And everyone is valuable." Jasmine added, "It depends on how you see it." That ambiguous trio of statements perfectly encapsulated the entire saga. No outright victory. No clear defeat. Just shifting power, mutual dependence, and the undeniable truth that conflict fuels empire. As credits rolled on the finale, social media exploded one last time. Some praised the growth arc. Others insisted the tension still felt unresolved. But one thing was undeniable: love and hip-hop. Atlanta had survived its most public internal clash. And the word disrespect, once a threat to dismantle everything, had ironically strengthened the franchise by forcing everyone involved to confront the balance between fame and fairness, drama and dignity, control and collaboration. The future remains uncertain, as it always does in reality television. Alliances can fracture overnight. Our ATINGs can shift. New cast members can disrupt established hierarchies. But Kirk Frost and Jasmine Washington proved they were willing to challenge authority. And Mona Scott-Young proved she could absorb that challenge without losing the empire she built. Whether viewers see them as rebels, strategists, or simply reality stars playing the game, one truth lingers: the drama behind the cameras is sometimes even more explosive than what airs. And in the world of love and hip-hop, Atlanta, that may be the most powerful storyline of all. And yet, just when everyone thought the storm had passed and the empire had stabilized, a new ripple began forming beneath the surface, subtle at first, but impossible to ignore. After the finale aired and ratings reports confirmed the season had outperformed expectations, celebration on paper quickly turned into quiet recalibration behind closed doors. Network executives praised the spike, advertisers renewed commitments, and blogs ran think pieces calling it the most self-aware season in franchise history. But insiders reveal that with success came a new kind of tension, one rooted not in open confrontation, but in silent competition. Kirk and Jasmine had proven they could challenge authority and survive. Mona had proven she could be challenged and still maintain control. But survival changes dynamics. It shifts posture. It alters how people enter rooms. During early development meetings for the next season, producers reportedly noticed Kirk asking more detailed questions about arc outlines. Jasmine began requesting pre-filming discussions about context. These weren't demands, they were strategic pauses. And while everything remained professional, the undercurrent was undeniable. Some crew members admired the evolution, calling it maturity. Others whispered that too much negotiation risked slowing down the raw unpredictability that built the show's foundation. Fans are shocked when mid-off-season rumors surfaced that a brand new cast member was being added, a younger entrepreneur with strong social media influence and no fear of confrontation. Speculation exploded that this was a calculated move to disrupt the newly formed equilibrium. When filming began again, the first group seen included the newcomer, and within minutes, sparks flew. She openly questioned Kirk's redemption arc, implying it felt curated. Jasmine didn't hesitate to respond. "Growth looks curated to people who haven't done it," she said calmly, but the edge was sharp. Emotions ran high immediately. Producers watched closely. This was the chaos they understood. The organic clash that didn't involve power struggles with executives but still delivered impact. However, the newcomer wasn't done. In a confessional, she hinted that challenging production the previous season may have been less about principle and more about positioning. That comment reignited online debate. Fans are shocked at how quickly old wounds reopened. Social media split again, some defending Kirk and Jasmine's evolution, others questioning their motives. Mona, observing from her usual behind-the-scenes vantage point, reportedly viewed this as proof that the show's ecosystem corrects itself. New energy disrupts established control. Power never rests. At a charity basketball event filmed mid-season, tension peaked once more. The newcomer confronted Jasmine publicly, suggesting that rebels who become insiders stop rebelling. The crowd audibly reacted. Kirk stepped in, voice steady but firm. "Standing up once doesn't mean you fight every day," he said. "Sometimes you build." The exchange was intense but controlled, no shouting, no security stepping in, just strategic verbal sparring. Viewers later praised the nuance. But behind the cameras, producers noted something interesting. Kirk and Jasmine were no longer reactive. They were measured, calculated, almost executive in posture. That shift made some castmates uneasy. The family was left divided yet again, not over loyalty to Mona, but over perception of hierarchy within the cast itself. Whispers circulated that Kirk had become untouchable. Others countered that survival doesn't equal immunity. Mid-season, a private disagreement between Kirk and a producer over scene framing leaked to gossip pages. And like the explosive footage from the year before, this leak was minor, almost procedural. But it reignited speculation that friction still simmered. Mona addressed it swiftly in a production meeting, reportedly stating, "Creative tension is normal. Chaos is not." The message was clear. Boundaries existed. Yet what truly shifted the season's trajectory came during a sit-down between Mona and Jasmine filmed intentionally without glam, without an audience, just two chairs and raw conversation. Jasmine admitted that after the confrontation year, she struggled with anxiety before filming days. "It feels like walking into negotiation every time," she confessed. Mona listened quietly before responding. "Empire building requires thick skin." Jasmine countered softly, "So does surviving inside one." The moment felt deeply human. When it aired, fans are shocked at the vulnerability displayed by both women. Commentary shifted from rivalry to respect. Think pieces reframed their dynamic as complex mentorship rather than simple opposition. Ratings climbed steadily again, not because of screaming matches, but because viewers sensed authenticity in layered conversations about power and growth. Kirk, too, experienced a subtle narrative pivot. Instead of being defined by past scandals, his storyline focused on business expansion and fatherhood. Skeptics called it image management. Supporters called it evolution. But even in calmer arcs, tension found its way back. At a group dinner late in the season, alcohol loosened tongues and a longtime castmate accused Kirk of playing executive instead of cast. The accusation stung. Kirk responded firmly, knowing your value doesn't make you management. Laughter from some, silence from others. Emotions ran high once more, but this time the argument didn't spiral out of control. Perhaps that was the biggest sign of change. Conflict no longer felt like implosion. It felt like negotiation in public. As finale planning began, producers crafted a storyline mirroring the previous year's chaos but reframed as growth. Flashbacks to the original confrontation were woven into confessionals about lessons learned. Jasmine reflected, "Sometimes disrespect is just unheard pain." Kirk added, "Sometimes power has to be challenged to be understood." Mona, in her own segment, said, "Sometimes leadership means letting the fire burn without extinguishing it." The editing positioned all three not as enemies, but as forces shaping the same machine. When the season finale aired, fans are shocked at how differently they interpreted the saga compared to the year before. What once felt like near destruction now looked like transformation. Online polls asking should they be fired were replaced with debates about who really runs the narrative. Advertisers, comfortable again, doubled down on sponsorship. Reunion taping this time carried less hostility and more reflection. The host revisited the confrontation arc, asking if they would change anything. Kirk said, "I'd lower my voice, not my stance." Jasmine said, "I'd speak sooner." Mona said, "I'd listen faster." Applause filled the studio. It wasn't explosive, but it was powerful. The family was left divided in opinion still, but united in one truth: the franchise had evolved. Yet even as comms settled publicly, insiders hint that the balance remains delicate. Power in reality television is never static. New personalities rise, old alliances fracture, contracts expire. Negotiations reopen. The word replacement never fully disappears from executive vocabulary. But for now, Kirk Frost and Jasmine Washington stand not as fired cast members or cautionary tales, but as proof that challenging authority can either end your career or redefine it, depending on how the aftermath is handled. Mona Scott-Young remains at the helm, steady and strategic, her empire intact. And love and hip-hop, Atlanta continues forward, fueled not just by romantic entanglements and betrayals, but by the deeper drama of who controls the story when the cameras are always watching. Because in this world, disrespect can spark destruction or evolution. And sometimes, the difference between the two is simply who blinks first. And just when it seemed like evolution had replaced explosion, the unthinkable rumor began circulating again: cancellation. Not because ratings were low, not because advertisers pulled out, but because executives were allegedly considering a full franchise refresh to target a younger demographic. Fans are shocked at how quickly stability can turn into speculation in the reality television world. Blogs reported that internal presentations mentioned legacy fatigue, a phrase that instantly set social media on fire. Legacy fatigue. After everything Kirk and Jasmine had navigated, after the confrontation that nearly fractured production, after the strategic rebuilding of trust, the possibility that the entire cast could be deemed outdated felt like a new kind of disrespect. Behind the scenes, tension returned in a quieter, colder form. No shouting, no explosive dinners, just meetings. Lots of meetings. Kirk reportedly heard about the rumor through an industry contact before production even addressed it officially. Jasmine found out when a fan tagged her in a speculative article suggesting a next-generation reboot. The family was left divided yet again, not over loyalty this time, but over survival. During a closed-door cast meeting, Mona Scott-Young addressed the rumor directly. "Television evolves," she said calmly. That doesn't mean replacement. It means reinvention. Her tone was steady, but insiders say the room felt uneasy. Reinvention can be empowering. It can also be code for transition. Kirk spoke up first. "We've reinvented already," he said. "We took conflict and turned it into growth." Jasmine added, "If legacy is fatigue, then what is loyalty?" The question lingered: loyalty. In reality TV, loyalty often competes with profitability. Emotions ran high internally, even if no one raised their voice. Contracts were reviewed. Timelines analyzed. Contingency plans whispered about. At the same time, a new wave of younger influencers began appearing in cameo roles throughout the season. Collaborations, cross-promotions, subtle tests. Fans are shocked at how obvious the audition energy felt. Online commentary exploded with comparisons between veteran cast members and newcomers. Some praised fresh energy. Others accused the network of disrespecting foundational stars. Mid-season, a high-profile podcast invited Kirk and Jasmine to speak openly about the franchise's future. This time, there was no on-set confrontation, just microphones and raw conversation. Kirk acknowledged the reboot rumors directly. "If evolution means pushing us aside, that's one thing," he said. "But if it means building with us, that's another." Jasmine was more pointed. "We fought to be heard. We won't quietly fade." Those statements rippled through production circles. Mona reportedly heard the interview before it aired and wasn't blindsided, but she was attentive. Power wasn't being shouted about anymore. It was being signaled strategically. Then came another twist that no one predicted. Early test screenings for a potential spin-off concept centered around Kirk's business ventures reportedly scored extremely well with focus groups. At the same time, a digital miniseries featuring Jasmine's entrepreneurial journey gained unexpected traction online. Suddenly, the narrative shifted from replacement to expansion. Fans are shocked at how quickly the reboot rumor transformed into franchise extension speculation. Could Love and Hip Hop Atlanta evolve into a broader universe? Would Kirk and Jasmine transition from cast members to executive collaborators? The very idea felt surreal considering they were once on the brink of termination. During a filmed strategy dinner late in the season, Mona sat down with Kirk and Jasmine again, not in confrontation, but in possibility. "Growth requires risk," she said, "but risk requires trust." Kirk nodded slowly. "Trust is built when voices matter." Jasmine added, "and when history isn't erased." The conversation wasn't fully revealing, but viewers sensed something shifting. Less tension, more alignment. Not friendship, but partnership potential. Still, not everyone celebrated the possibility. Some castmates privately expressed frustration that Kirk and Jasmine seemed to benefit from challenging the system while others stayed silent. The family was left divided once more, this time over perceived reward versus risk. In a dramatic group scene at a season-ending gala, one cast member confronted Jasmine directly. "So speaking out gets you promoted now?" she asked sharply. The room fell silent. Jasmine responded evenly, "Speaking out got us uncomfortable conversations. What came after was work." Kirk stepped in calmly. "Nobody hands out power. You negotiate it." Emotions ran high, but the argument didn't explode. Instead, it revealed the new hierarchy, not one of control, but of leverage. As the finale approached, trailers teased a major announcement. Speculation reached fever pitch. Would there be firings? Spin-offs? Rebranding? Fans flooded comment sections with theories. When the finale aired, the announcement wasn't cancellation. It wasn't a reboot. It was renewal with expansion. Love and Hip Hop Atlanta would return, but with a companion limited series exploring business and legacy within the cast. Kirk and Jasmine were confirmed participants, not as sole leads, but as central figures. Fans are shocked at the full-circle nature of the journey, from alleged disrespect and near termination to strategic reinvention and expanded opportunity. The montage that closed the episode was powerful. Flashes of the original blow-up, headlines screaming about firing rumors, reunion reflections, and finally, a calm shot of Mona, Kirk, and Jasmine standing at the gala, cameras flashing. In confessional, Mona delivered a line that resonated deeply. "Leadership isn't about never being challenged," she said. "It's about surviving the challenge." Kirk followed with, "Respect isn't demanded. It's negotiated." Jasmine concluded, "And sometimes the fight isn't against each other. It's against being unheard." The internet erupted again. but this time with a different tone. Less outrage, more analysis. Think pieces framed the saga as a case study in modern reality television power dynamics. Fans debated who truly won. But maybe winning wasn't the point. Because in the world of love and hip-hop, Atlanta, survival is the real currency. Narratives shift, alliances change, empires adapt, and the cameras never stop capturing the tension between authenticity and entertainment. The firing question that once dominated headlines now feels almost symbolic, a reminder of how quickly influence can be threatened and how resilience can transform conflict into leverage. Kirk Frost and Jasmine Washington didn't just stay. They recalibrated. Mona Scott Young didn't fold. She adjusted. And as the franchise steps into its next chapter, one truth remains undeniable. In reality television, disrespect can destroy you, or it can force evolution. The outcome depends not on who shouts the loudest, but on who understands the game. And this game, it's far from over. And as cameras quietly began rolling for the expanded season, the atmosphere felt less like a show fighting for survival and more like a franchise redefining its own mythology. Yet underneath that polished reinvention simmered a fresh tension no one wanted to say out loud. What happens when rebellion becomes brand? Fans are shocked at how Kirk and Jasmine's once controversial defiance had evolved into a central marketing angle, teased in trailers as the moment that changed everything. But with that spotlight came scrutiny. Critics began questioning whether the original confrontation had been as spontaneous as it seemed or whether, consciously or not, everyone involved understood its promotional value. Online debates intensified again, this time less about firing and more about authenticity. Was the power struggle real, or had it become commodified? Emotions ran high across fan forums dissecting every glance, every pause, every confessional. Meanwhile, on set, the expanded format introduced a hybrid structure blending personal life, business ventures, and meta-commentary about fame itself. Kirk's business meetings were now filmed with sharper focus, boardroom language mixing with street-level charisma. And in one pivotal scene, a potential investor bluntly asked him, "Are you an artist, a reality star, or an executive?" Kirk paused before answering, "I'm someone who learned the cost of not owning my narrative." That line instantly trended after the episode aired. Jasmine's arc mirrored that sentiment as she launched a new project centered around empowerment workshops for women navigating public scrutiny. During one emotionally charged seminar scene, she admitted, "When people label you the villain long enough, you either shrink or you redefine yourself." The room applauded, but viewers at home debated whether this was growth or strategic image repair. The family was left divided not only among cast but among audiences who once craved chaos and now found themselves witnessing calculated transformation. Yet even transformation invites friction. A mid-season gala intended to celebrate the franchise's longevity became the setting for another explosive moment when a guest speaker referenced to previous years. Controversy as a publicity masterstroke. Jasmine's expression hardened instantly. Kirk leaned back in his chair, visibly uncomfortable. Later that night, in a semi-private corner captured by roaming cameras, Jasmine confronted Kirk. "Are we becoming what they accuse us of?" she asked quietly. Kirk responded, "We survived. People will call survival strategy." Emotions ran high in that subdued exchange, not because of shouting, but because of vulnerability. Survival had been the goal, but now identity was on the line. Mona, ever observant, addressed the comment indirectly in her confessional. "When you build something powerful, every storm becomes part of its legend," she said. "The question is whether you let the legend define you. The question is whether you let the legend define you." That layered statement reignited speculation that Mona viewed the confrontation not as threat, but as catalyst. Behind the scenes, executives reviewed analytics showing that episodes referencing the original disrespect incident still generated spikes in engagement, proving that conflict had long-term commercial life. But monetizing tension carries risk. Some sponsors reportedly requested reassurance that future seasons would not feature workplace instability narratives. The word stability began circulating as the new corporate priority. In response, production emphasized unity scenes, collaborative charity events, joint business panels, group therapy-style discussions. Yet unity, when forced, can feel fragile. During one candid group dinner, a castmate who had remained mostly neutral finally spoke up. "We talk about respect like it's a trophy," she said. "But respect isn't a storyline." Silence fell. The statement lingered heavier than any shouted insult. Jasmine nodded slowly. Kirk looked thoughtful. Even Mona, watching playback later, reportedly acknowledged that line as a turning point. Because the evolution of the show was no longer about who held power, but about how power was portrayed. Fans are shocked at how layered the narrative had become compared to earlier seasons filled primarily with romantic betrayal. Now the drama centered on image, negotiation, influence. Some longtime viewers celebrated the maturity. Others missed the unpredictability of unchecked emotion. Ratings held steady, but discourse grew more analytical than reactive. Bloggers shifted tone from gossip to commentary on media ethics and reality TV production culture. And still, beneath all that intellectual framing, human tension remained. Late in the season, an unscripted moment reignited raw feeling. During a heated exchange about creative credit for a collaborative project, Kirk raised his voice slightly, not explosively, but enough to echo memory. The room stiffened. Jasmine's eyes widened for a split second. Mona's posture straightened behind the monitor. For a fleeting moment, it felt like the past might repeat itself. But instead of escalation, Kirk caught himself. He exhaled. "I'm not doing that again," he said, lowering his tone. The release of tension was palpable. Emotions ran high precisely because they didn't explode. Growth isn't loud. Sometimes it's restraint. When that episode aired, fans flooded social media praising the visible self-awareness. Some skeptics called it performance. Others saw genuine evolution. The family was left divided as always, but perhaps that division had become the franchise's heartbeat, debate sustaining relevance. As finale planning approached once more, producers toyed with the idea of revisiting the original confrontation location for symbolic closure. When the cast arrived on that same soundstage months later, the energy felt surreal. Kirk stood near the monitors again. Jasmine crossed her arms briefly before relaxing them. Mona took her usual position. No argument erupted. Instead, they filmed a reflective conversation about what that day had meant. "I thought everything would end," Jasmine admitted softly. Kirk added, "I thought everything might change." Mona concluded, "It did." The simplicity of that exchange contrasted sharply with the chaos that once filled the same space. Fans are shocked at how powerful stillness can be compared to shouting. Yet even in calm resolution, uncertainty remains the lifeblood of reality television. Contract renewals loom annually. New talent always waits in the wings. Audience taste shifts unpredictably. But what Kirk Frost and Jasmine Washington proved through conflict, confrontation, negotiation, and recalibration is that being nearly fired can either diminish your presence or redefine it entirely. And what Mona Scott Young demonstrated is that authority tested publicly doesn't have to crumble, it can adapt. The franchise now stands as both entertainment and meta-commentary. It's cast aware of the lens, yet still vulnerable within it. Whether future seasons bring fresh rebellion or deeper collaboration, one truth endures. In this world, power is fluid, respect is negotiated, and every moment, no matter how explosive, becomes part of the story that keeps the cameras rolling. So after everything, the explosive confrontation, the leaked footage, the near termination rumors, the tense reunions, the power negotiations, and the ultimate reinvention, one question still lingers in the air. Was it truly disrespect? Or was it a bold move that changed the game forever? Kirk Frost and Jasmine Washington went from possibly being fired to redefining their positions within love and hip-hop. Atlanta. And through it all, Mona Scott Young proved that leadership under pressure can either collapse or evolve. Fans are shocked at how close it all came to falling apart. Emotions ran high, alliances shifted, and the family was left divided more than once. But in the end, what we witnessed wasn't just reality TV drama, it was a battle over respect, control, and legacy. Some viewers believe Kirk and Jasmine were absolutely out of line and should have been fired immediately. Others argue that without their willingness to challenge the system, the franchise would have stayed stagnant. Now it's your turn to weigh in. Do you think Kirk and Jasmine crossed the line that day on set? Or did they simply say what others were too afraid to say? Was Mona right to consider consequences? Or was keeping them the smartest move for the franchise? And if a new season brings fresh tension, whose side will you be on? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this debate is far from over. Make sure you like this video if you live for reality TV drama that goes deeper than the surface, and subscribe so you don't miss the next explosive breakdown. Trust me, in this world, the cameras may stop rolling, but the drama never really ends. Drama never really ends.